Welcome everybody to the Mind, Body, and Soul television show coming to you live from our Denver, Colorado TV studios. I'm your host, Coach Steve Toth, and also the founder of Conscious Evolution Media, and going on 10 plus years, and this show actually have been on the air for 8 years now. So we got a little track record, and we're attracting absolutely wonderful guests, just like this evening. Our guest this evening is Joe Nunziata. He's an author, a spiritual, and a life business coach, and I'm sure many other things, which we're going to find out in this conscious hour. But before we do that, Joe, if I took away all these titles, like author, spiritual, life, and business coach, and any other title that anybody has ever called you in your life, if I took them all away, what's left? Who is really Joe Nunziata?
You know, that's a great question. I always talk to people about that because we have so many identities, false identities, and really I always think of myself as just essence. I just want to be my own essence, my own energy, and be in my truth. So that is always the key for me, and that's what I try to teach people to do, is just be in your essence and just be you. And my teacher used to say to me, many years ago, my spiritual teacher, she used to say, be yourself, love yourself. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, right on. That's a fantastic answer. So let's just begin with have the viewers a little bit relate to you. Just tell us your story. You know, we all have a story, right? Tell us the shorter version.
I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. Right now,
Oh my goodness.
if you can imagine a spiritual teacher who came from Brooklyn, New York.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I'm originally from there. I now live in Southern California with my beautiful wife and son, who's in college. I grew up there. You know, my dad was a New York City cop. He became a narcotics detective in New York, which, of course, at that time was not great. Unfortunately, he died when I was 12 years old in a violent incident on the job. And I went out, you know, I was the oldest, I was a boy, I'm Italian, I'm Catholic, I have a lot of guilt. So I felt very much like it was my responsibility to get out into the world and start working as soon as possible, which I actually started working at 13 years old. Right after high school, I went to work full time. And my philosophy was, well, this is about me going out there, working hard, helping the family. I was very entrepreneurial. I started a business. I bought a business at 19 years old. I bought a soda delivery business. I was driving a truck through Brooklyn delivering soda. And, you know, that was it. I was on my way to becoming a mogul in beverage industry.
Joe,
And
what year was this?
this was oh boy, let me go back, 1979, 80.
Okay.
So
Well,
I was a kid.
I was in Brooklyn. I was in Brooklyn between 1974
Okay.
and 1977. That's the only reason I asked.
Okay, yeah. So I was, you know, I driving around in trucks and, you know, doing that work, and you know, was really excited about doing this and being an entrepreneurial kind of person. Long story short, I ended up going bankrupt by 20. I bounced around for a number of years. I worked in nightclubs, I worked in bars, I bartended, I managed bands. I worked down at a couple of famous clubs down in Lower Manhattan. Ended up deciding to go into the business world, got into sales, started another business, ended up going bankrupt again. So by 30, I was bankrupt twice. And one of the things that was disturbing me, other than the fact that I had no money, which of course was disturbing me, but what was really disturbing me was I was out there working like crazy. I was working hard, and even though I didn't go to college, I was always reading books about success, and starting with, of course, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and reading books, you know, goal-setting books, and working really hard and doing all this stuff. And I said, I don't understand why I am not successful. And finally, I always make a joke out of it because we could never discuss this at my house, but I ended up sneaking into therapy because I said, I don't know what else to do. I've done everything, you know, externally. Did that for a few years, and that led me into energy work and metaphysical work. Started to meet different people, teachers, psychics, mediums, got connected to my father at one point by John Edward, who of course now is the famous medium. I went to see him in '97 out in Long Island before he was known, and then met another very powerful teacher who was an enlightened master teacher who taught me about the chakra system and energy. So I just actually started doing this work to heal myself, and people started asking me what I was doing. I seemed to be different, and little by little it evolved into a different career, which, believe me, no one is more surprised than me.
Yeah, well, it's a fantastic history, and believe it or not, this is happening now more and more often as I'm experiencing the different guests. I probably easily interviewed thousands of guests, but what I'm finding that we have a lot in common, Joe. Almost everything you said, I also did.
You drove a truck and you bartended and you did all
well,
that.
no, I didn't do that, but talking about going bankrupt twice, yeah, I did that. I started businesses. I made lots of money and been broke lots of times. And when I made money, I didn't know how to keep it.
Yeah.
And I basically ended up with a couple of really, really nifty addictions that almost took me out. And that's when I was forced. You know how the universe comes after you?
Oh, sure.
And, dude, if after all of this you're still not listening, here is one that you may not wake up from.
That'll do it.
Yeah. So I listened, but actually, Joe, that's how this network was born. I put all my energy and all my passion into this network to get away from and heal myself from these addictions that I got involved in, so that I didn't have to be in touch with myself and who I really am. So I was looking for all the answers to all my problems outside of myself all my life. And the answers are not out there, which I'm sure you know.
Which most people are doing.
Yeah, most people are still doing that,
yeah.
Looking for all that stuff out there. It's either, a guru or, books, tapes, you name it, cars, homes, women, men. It's all those things.
Yeah.
And none of those things are the answers. So I am like so curious, and I seen some of these books that you have written, and the titles are absolutely outstanding, like Finding Your Purpose, Spiritual Selling, and Karma Buster. Excellent titles. So I want to talk about those, but before we get into that, I want to just check this out with you, because I was on your website, which is actually fantastic, but is any of the work that you've been doing has something to do with people's core issues, the things that we all end up deciding when we're young kids, like what creates our not just our self-esteem, but who we really are. And it's a false self, really. It just comes out of a situation where we get hurt as a kid. And almost everybody has one of these experiences, although some people tell me that they don't, either because they don't remember it or they don't want to admit it.
Well, they block it out.
Yeah, they're blocking it out. But we kind of all have one of these, yeah. And then we make up this story, like I made up the story about myself that I was a nobody. And I'm not going to get into what the details were, because I've done it on this network many times. Nothing is a secret, but I don't want to repeat that. But is basically the core thing that you realized throughout all this is that is what needs to be healed. Is that accurate?
Yeah, well, basically, obviously, everything is internal, but the work that I did and the work that I continue to do with people is emotionally driven. And what I explain to people and what I want people to understand, and this was very hard for me, because we are very, especially being a New Yorker, but we are very mentally driven and action-oriented. So if I want to do something in my life or change something, what I learned growing up was, okay, decide what you want to do, take an action. It's a mental process, have this strong will, whatever. But as I started to do this work, what I realized was it had nothing to do with that, because I did all that. And the work that I do now, what I focus on is people's emotional issues, because their emotional issues are the energy. That's the energy that they're holding. That's the energy that they're sending out, and that's the energy that's creating their lives. People have to make a shift from the mental to the emotional. This is where that's where the changes are going to take place. It's basically what I talk about as cause and effect. When people want to make a change, they attack the effect. So they say, I'm overweight, I need a diet. What I say is, forget the diet. Why are you overweight? Let's go there. Well, you're overweight because there's some emotional issue that you have not resolved. And you could be, and if you look at the diet industry, which I always laugh about, because It's a $70+ billion industry in the United States, and every year the obesity rate goes up. So what is that telling us? We're spending $70 billion and it doesn't work because
it's not working.
We're attacking the effect and not the cause, which is the core emotional issue that the person is holding.
But people love this word called hope.
Yes.
And they won't give it up. So as long as another fad comes out, and it's all about marketing, right? I mean, America is probably the best when it comes to marketing.
And I come from an advertising background. I sold advertising. You did all that.
Yeah.
And one of the things, and the bottom line is, listen, marketers are going to understand what triggers people to buy something. And basically, this work that we're doing here is more about you have to go in and do work on yourself emotionally. There is no magic pill. There is no button to push. And it's kind of like saying, I want to lose weight. Well, you know what? You have to do work to lose weight. You don't just lose weight because you bought something on TV and got the box in your house and you looked at it. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
And people have to understand there's work to be done. And people say to me, well, why do you tell people that? You can't sell that. I said, well, I don't care. If they don't know that, I don't want to take their money, because if they're not willing to do some work on themselves, it's not happening.
Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting is, since I've been doing this this network for over 10 years, so you can imagine we covered almost every subject matter and every modality that's out there. And what's interesting is I used to be really uptight about, so how many people's lives are we changing? Like I want to know the numbers. And I gave that up completely, because you know what? That's not why I'm doing this for. I do want to change the world, but I want to change me first. I want to prove to myself and to everybody else that I'm doing this for, that this works for me. And if it works for me, it can work for everybody.
Yeah, it's all about healing yourself first. I always tell people that, the whole game, it's nice to help other people, and I love doing it, and I get great joy out of it. But the bottom line is, I am continuing. I'm a work in progress like everybody else.
Yeah,
so,
me too.
And I'm constantly healing myself. And when I say to other people, when they say, well, I want to help everyone, I said, you help everyone by healing yourself. So, that is what people have to understand.
Yep, exactly. And what's interesting, is that this is the stuff that you and I are talking about right now. This is the stuff that everybody wants to ignore. Like all the other things that are out there, for example, the nice cars, drinking, drugs, you name it, sex, gambling, all that stuff is out there so that we can really get engaged with those things so we don't have to think about this stuff. Would you agree?
Yeah, basically what I say to people is this: when you have an emotional issue, what is your compulsive behavior? Because I'm looking to find what you do. So people say, well, I go shopping, I eat, I work more, I have drinks, I do drugs. So everybody has, some people, or I exercise. Well, not that there's anything wrong with that exercising, but what I'm saying is you have an emotional issue and you've learned. I had a woman I work with, what she did was every time she got stressed, she cleaned her house, because that was her compulsive place to go, not to feel her emotion. What we have to do is identify, what is my routine? I always say to people, what is your routine? What is it that you like to do when you're stressed? And you have to stop doing that. Now, I will tell you that people struggle because they say, well, that's what I always do. Now, what are you telling me to do? Nothing? No, I said, I'm telling you to understand, what are you feeling? You don't know what you're feeling because you never learned to do it, because most of us grew up in a household where our feelings were invalidated or not allowed. So therefore, if I'm saying I'm feeling something, and I learned as a child when someone said to me, well, don't feel that way, or don't make a big deal out of it, or whatever that came toward me, now I shut all my emotion down, and the key to me healing myself is understanding my emotional self. It's a journey back to really where you belong, because when you watch a baby cries, laughs, does whatever it wants because it's tied into its emotion. As we get older, we disconnect, and that's really where we lose our connection to source energy and really our higher power.
Well, we are trained as we grow, right? Yeah. How it should be. And who knows how it should be? Like, everybody just walks around that we're all experts, like we all know.
And we all, and as you know, we all came out of very dysfunctional environments. Most of us, especially emotionally.
Yeah.
And forget about the religious stuff. That's another whole issue. But we came out of all this dysfunction, and now we're trying to operate emotionally. So really, what I always say to people is a lot of this work is about learning how to manage your emotional state. That's really important. When you learn how to manage yourself emotionally, you can really make your life so much better. But again, it's a very different way of. It's like using. I think of it as a computer, which we were talking about before we started. You were saying computers or whatever, but it's like having a different operating system. And
Yes.
if I'm operating on Windows 8 and you're operating on MS-DOS, well, we've got a problem. So, and this is the evolution is to elevate myself emotionally. It's funny because I always say, the minute there's a new operating system or new phone, everybody has to upgrade and has to fix it and has to. But I said, you never do this for yourself emotionally. You do it for all your devices and your computers and your TVs and everything. But you don't say to yourself, well, how is my operating system? Am I upgraded emotionally to where I should be? Most people are not.
Well, some of the reasons for that, I think, is because there's so many people that are just completely taken over by their egos, and they already know it all, Joe. There's nothing you can tell them because they have their opinions and their perspective, and they all set. There's nothing you can tell them that's going to change their mind about how life is or what's possible. And actually, the theme of the show is how to open your mind to unlimited possibilities. Like most people I'm experiencing when I'm out there in the world, and believe me, for the last I've been going back to the real world in the last 6 months. I basically locked myself up in studios for the last 10 years. That was my escape to heal myself. That's what I needed.
Yeah.
Some people may need something else, but what I needed is I needed to stop doing all the stuff that I was doing because it was killing me, and I needed to put my energy and my passion into building this network so that, and I noticed that after 10 years, wow, that's interesting. I created this this plasma around myself, this protection that I was really having a fantastic life, but I created this life that only existed in a studio.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of reminiscent of if you went back in the old days, if somebody wanted to be spiritual, they would become a monk. They would remove themselves from society. They would live a monastic lifestyle, right? They'd be meditating all day, and they'd be in a small group of people who were very similar. Now what we're trying to do at an elevated state, I think of it as I want to be able to hold my space even being in the middle of all this craziness that's going on. That's a real accomplishment. And I think that's something that's very exciting for us right now to say, how can I maintain my spirituality, my peace, my calm, my joy, my love, even though I'm surrounded by all this nonsense that's going on around me, and not remove myself. That is a really interesting thing, and I think that's an exciting thing to do right now.
It's very much so, Joe. I totally agree with you because 6 months ago, that's what I was called to do. I was basically called, and I guess I could say, I'm being tested. Okay, so for 10 years you did all this, and you gained a lot of knowledge. Not that I know it all, because I don't. But I gained all this knowledge. Can you imagine how many? I don't know who said this, but if you spend 10,000 hours or 10 years doing something,
right,
you acquire some kind of a mastery. So I guess I can say I have arrived at a certain level of mastery in broadcasting because I don't even have to think about it. I can do this just like I can drive a car. Can you tell?
Yeah, well, you could see, and again, it's all comfort because it's like when I go speak and people will say to me, you seem so comfortable. I said, well, I'm doing this for 20 some odd years, so it's like I don't have any. You could just say to me right now, I need you to go speak for 3 hours on the topic. I don't need to prepare. I don't need to do any homework. I don't need any slides. I could just go do it. So that is, again, but it took time, as you said, to get to that. Oh
point. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what's interesting to me is that when you were talking about earlier about emotions, and I just want to come from a different place. It's the same thing, but I just to make sure that maybe we cover a different place to come from for the viewers. And how I relate to emotions is getting your buttons pushed. So we walk around as human beings, um, like 5-year-olds in an adult body. Does that
Well,
make sense to you?
I hope we're at least 5-year-olds. Many people are lower than that.
Lower
So
than that,
they're
right?
2-year-olds or
So
3-year-olds. Everybody is emotionally holding on to stuff from their childhood.
yeah,
Everybody's
yeah,
doing that. So
exactly,
that's why when you get
exactly.
triggered today, that's based on something that happened to you when you were, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or even before you even arrived here. Something happened emotionally while you were in the
Absolutely.
womb, holding on to those emotions. But the problem is, really, Steve, is that people never learned how to how to process those emotions. That is what the work is now that I do, and what I try to help people say is, okay, these emotions are part of your life. You just didn't learn what to do with them. And because you didn't know what to do with them, they keep recycling and you keep repeating the same behavior or creating the same episodes because you never learned or were never taught how to first identify what you're feeling, which most people don't know, by the way. And once you identify it, learn how to resolve it and move forward. But again, for a lot of people to ask them what they're feeling, most people I will tell you that I run into cannot.
Especially in New York.
Oh, well, New York, they just knock you over.
So, wow, this is fascinating stuff, Joe. So, I wanna talk to you a little bit about Finding Your Purpose, that book of yours, because this is something that I also became totally aware of for myself. Is that as soon as I find my purpose, like I was really asking, like, who am I, and why did I come to this planet? And it became really obvious to me 10 years ago that the reason I came here is because I want to provide value and I want to serve people, but I can only do that if I am healthy myself. And I'm not just talking about emotionally, but spiritually and also my own health.
Sure,
I had to
physically.
go through whatever I had to go through because I'm finding that people, for example, people that are not eating healthy, I just know this from my own point of view.
Mm.
When they're not eating healthy and I see people going into McDonald's, it's not possible to be awake and conscious for me today and go into McDonald's. Does this make sense?
Yeah, well, it's funny that you say McDonald's because I'm out Monday. I was out getting a cup of coffee. I'm reading the paper, USA Today. There was an article about McDonald's getting a new CEO. What they said was,
Correct.
well, that their sales are actually dropping. But what they also said was that 70% of McDonald's business is drive-through, which means 70% of the people don't even get out of their car. They drive through, get some unhealthy food, and go eat it somewhere, probably in their car. And there was no
Yeah.
movement. There was no movement there either. But what's interesting, what happens is when you move yourself to a higher level of energy and consciousness, your desire to eat that food goes away. That's what
Correct.
people. So this is how people lose weight. When
Absolutely.
I work with people to lose weight, they say, "Are you going to give me a diet?" I said, "No, I'm not a dietitian." I said, "But I'm going to
Yeah.
clear your energy and I'm going to shift your desires, so you don't have a desire to go eat McDonald's or whatever it is that you're eating anymore. And your energy, your higher self, speaks to you and says, 'Oh no, no, no.' And it doesn't mean you can never eat an ice cream cone. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
it's
That's
just
exactly right.
your lifestyle
So
changes based on your desires."
so Joe, let me just give you another. And I'm not doing a commercial. I'm not even going to show exactly what this drink is. But here is what's interesting. So I have a roommate here that offered me the other day a mango drink because he knows that I like mango. Okay, so the very first thing I did, and if you known me years ago, I wouldn't have done this. But the very first thing I did is I turned it over and I looked at the ingredients and I saw sugar
Mm,
was 36 grams.
wow,
Now, just so to bring that home to the viewers, so one sugar cube is 2 grams.
right, that's a lot of sugar.
So that's 18 sugar cubes in a 1 liter bottle. So look
Yeah,
at this.
yeah,
Okay, I look at the sugar 1 gram, 1 gram.
right,
So these are the things that I'm paying attention to now because it does matter to me.
yeah, sure.
And I don't eat fast food, and I changed everything. I lost 60 pounds.
Wow.
I actually cured myself from diabetes too.
Yeah, and that's also something that it's
Took
funny
me
because
2 years. 2 years.
wow, and that's something that a lot of
And it's
people have.
work. All of this is work. I mean,
Oh yeah.
diabetes is not even an epidemic anymore. It's a pandemic.
Oh yeah. And again, it's all a lot of it is dietary and what people are eating. Again, and you made adjustments. Those adjustments now start to bear fruit. But I had a cousin here come to visit me in California. She's having tremendous amount of physical problems. She does have a weight issue, and one of the things she was doing here constantly was drinking cans and cans and cans of diet soda. And I said, that's the worst thing you could do. First of all, it completely dehydrates your body. She's having all kinds of physical walking issues and so forth. I said, you're drinking.
Addictive. It's addictive.
It's addictive. It's ripping your body apart. And obviously, our diet is not good either. But I said, you're drinking. And I said, drink. Could you drink some water? And so, of course, back to what you said earlier, which is some people, they're not changing, which we have to accept. That's part of life. And I'm driving her back to her hotel, and she said, could you stop off at the store? And what does she do? She goes in and buys a case of diet sodas to bring back to the room. So I said, okay, I have to accept, which is part of our journey, is to accept this person is choosing this path, and there's nothing I can do about it. You can only help people who want to be helped. And this is also very important.
But Joe, here's how I resolved that for myself. So because I noticed that at the beginning of all this, I was judging them, right? And I said,
me too.
Oh, that's not really cool.
No.
So all I do now is I just understand that based on where they are in their life right now, that's completely congruent.
Yes. Yeah, and you have to, acceptance is a big principle with this work, and you may not like it, and I always say to people, you may even get upset about it, which is fine, but you have to accept it. You're not going to like everything. You're not going to like everything people do, but if they're choosing that path, you have to accept it. It makes your life a lot easier.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, and I do now. So let's talk a little bit more about purpose. So I know that there are a lot of people out there that are going to their jobs 9 to 5 and they hate it passionately.
Yes.
And it's really bad for them. It's bad for them. It's bad for their families. So a lot of people ask about. So yeah, they've been hearing about all this stuff about what's my purpose, blah blah blah. I don't know if you've seen this recent movie, Joe. Whiplash. Have you seen it?
Which one? Oh no, the drummer. No, I actually haven't, but I definitely, it's on my list.
I was crying at the end of the movie. It took me. It just took me right through my soul. I was crying because what the movie is about is really about our theme, how to open your mind to unlimited possibilities. This kid has become a superstar in terms of a drummer. And he always knew that he had it, but he had to prove it to his teacher. And it was absolutely fantastic. And the movie shows you how hard that you have to work hard.
Oh yeah.
It just doesn't happen just by some magic wand. You have to work hard. I mean, he was drumming so hard that his hands were constantly bleeding. Yeah, and he was putting his hands in ice water, and the movie shows you what you have to go through to break through. Like you have to go through to go to the jungle to get to the other side.
Yeah, and I think it's something. It's funny because you bring up, because I know the music. It's about a musician, right? A drummer. And I used to work in nightclubs in New York City, and there were a lot of guys that would come, and on one night a week we'd have an open night, and a lot of guys would just come down there and jam. And a lot of these guys were studio musicians, really good. And I remember speaking to some of them and say, well, how long did it take you to get good? And I'll never forget one conversation, a guy who was really good. He was, well, to me, he was an older guy then. He was probably like 40 years old. To me, that was older because I was a kid then. But he said, well, it took me about 10 years of practicing as a kid every single day. He said, I would come home from school. He said, I would go in my room. I would play guitar for a couple of hours. Then I would do my homework and eat dinner, whatever, and go to bed. He said, I did it every single day. He said, I didn't play sports. He said, I came home. He said, in about 10 years, I was really good. He said, then the next 10 years when I got out of school and really focused and really worked on it even harder, he said, then I became great. He said, then I became a really top-level musician. But you're talking about 20 years of work, of, you know, coming home, and every day he's saying after school, my friends are going out, and I'm sitting in my room 3 hours, 4 hours playing guitar every day. There's a level of commitment, there's a level of effort and energy that must be placed in whatever it is that we want to do. Obviously, we also want to remain balanced, but you know, there is effort and work to do, even doing the spiritual growth work. I meditate twice a day. I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat a lot of, you know, there's all this stuff that goes into it. So it's again, it's a commitment, it's effort and energy, and without that, and it takes time. And I think that's something that, of course, in our instant society, people don't love because they want everything in 2 seconds, and that's
they don't want to hear that. Yeah.
No.
They want everything delivered like McDonald's. So tell me this, Joe. Do you feel that everybody knows deep down in the bottom of their heart what their purpose is?
Yeah, your purpose is coded to your DNA, so you definitely know it's in there. The question is, will you let it come out? And most people, when I get people alone and we talk, and I say, okay, listen, tell me what you really want to do. Take your brain out. See, because what people do is they let their brain get into it and start saying, well, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm this, I'm that. Well, I really couldn't do it. I had the wrong background. Whatever,
but I talk themselves out of it. They talk themselves out of it, right?
Yeah, because they want to rationalize it. I say, forget about all that. Just what do you want to do? And people will all come back to that core feeling, that thing that energizes them. So we all have it in us, but we have to let ourselves open up that door. Many people have had that door not only closed, they've had it cemented shut. Maybe at a young age, when you went to your parents and said, "Hey, I want to be a singer," and they said, "Don't be an idiot," and you know. You hear stories like this all the time, and how are you going to make? You can't make money doing that.
You can't make a living doing that.
Yeah. Right. So right away, when you hear that enough from most people, they just stop, because there is a part of us also that innately wants to make our parents happy. If you're running counter to what your parents want, a lot of people can't go against that because they don't want to have that, in effect, conflict with their parents by doing what their parents don't like. That is also a big emotional issue with connecting to purpose.
Well, guess what, Joe? I went completely against what my parents made me do.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
I was very rebellious. Interesting. So how can we help? What could you say on the show right now? Just give us a couple of pointers how people can open the door if they have shut it and even nailed it shut. How can they open it? How can they even think about this? Like, you know, what's the first step?
Yeah, I give people an exercise. I always love meditation because it's a place where we get disconnected and we can really connect to our true selves. What I ask people to do, even if you don't meditate, is just sit down one day, nice and quiet, and just kind of allow yourself to just close your eyes and bring yourself into a nice calm state, and just say to yourself, okay, what do I really want? What is the thing in life that really gets me excited? What is the thing in life that really gets my juices flowing? Because sometimes people say, I don't really know what I want to do, but as they do it, they start to bring things in. And I used to do this process, which I still do with people, and we'll come out of this little meditation, and I'll just say, okay, just start writing stuff down. And people write things like, dancer, singer, baseball player, artist, whatever. They start writing all these things down, and as they do, they start saying, oh, wow, I always really liked, it was interesting for me because I started out my career, after the nightclubs and the bars. When I got into the corporate world, I was in sales, and I would be out there selling, and then after about 6 or 7 months of my first job, my boss came to me and he said, listen, Joe, we would like you to take the new people out and show them what to do and train them. But we're going to pay you an extra, whatever it was at the time, $50 a week. So now I was only there about 6 or 7 months, and I was a young guy in my early 20s, but obviously I had this teaching skill, this ability to help people. Now, I never, of course, at that time realized that's what I was so good at, and it came so naturally to me. See, that's something also, what I say to people is this: whatever comes easy to you doesn't mean it will be easy to accomplish it, but the skill will come easily. A person who's a musician has a skill for music. A person who's an artist has a skill for art. It comes easy now to be really good at it, and it's like a basketball player. They used to always say about Michael Jordan, first guy to practice, last guy to leave. He was the best player on the team. He's the first guy to practice, last guy to leave. He had the skill, but he had the work ethic and the determination. So first thing is look for your skills. What are skills that come easily to you? That's one of the clues that the universe is trying to give you to say, hey, Steve, this is what you should be doing. You find it very easy to do these things. You're really good with numbers. Well, so look for those clues, and it'll start to take you in the right direction.
Yeah, fantastic. So this next title of yours, Spiritual Selling.
Yes, spiritual selling was funny because I go into sales in the corporate world, and I go out there, and my first job it was a commission job. I didn't know what I was doing, and I had 1 week of classroom training. And I said, okay, we're going to do a week. We're going to show you what to do. We're going to show you the script. We're going to do the whole thing. You're going to go out and you're going to start selling. It was selling advertising space in a publication that was distributed in supermarkets. So I go out there, I follow the plan, and I'm actually doing really well. And I didn't know anything. I was like Forrest Gump of sales. You know, I go out there, I know nothing.
But you knew 40% more than the customers knew that you were talking to. Right?
I knew enough to do it, and I had the work ethic, and I worked really hard. But after a while, I remember at one point they had a thing where we would make an ad for somebody, and we used to charge them a fee, and they were able to run the same ad in multiple supermarkets wherever we distributed, and they said, we charge them every time. Every time they go to a new store, we charge them for the ad. And I remember being in a meeting, and I said, well, why are we doing that if they already paid us? We're using the same one. Isn't that overcharging them? And I'll never forget, my sales manager said to me, it's not your job to be logical. It's your job to sell stuff. And so so basically what he was saying is that's unethical. He didn't say, yeah, well, the reason we do it is it costs us more money. He basically said, you figured it out that this is something wrong, and it bothered me. Now, here's what happened to me. Now, I remember after the meeting, I started talking to some of the other salespeople. Nobody else cared. Everybody said, I don't care. As long as I get my commission, I could care less. For me, it bothered me. And at that point, all of a sudden, I was always in the top couple of salespeople in the company. Within a month, I couldn't sell it anymore. Now, what I realized was, what was different with me? Why was this bothering? Nobody else seemed to care. But for some reason, once I lost the confidence in what I was selling, I couldn't sell it. And that was really the essence. I didn't know it back then because it was a long time ago. But that was really the beginning of spiritual selling, which was understanding that spiritual selling is selling from a position where you believe in what you're selling, you are congruent with what you're selling, you feel good about it, and you feel like it's fair, and you feel like it's helping. But I will tell you this, there are many salespeople, I would say the majority, who could care less. And they're very successful.
Well, that's quite obvious, Joe, because you were earlier talking about the health industry. I mean, we have all these fads that's being sold. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's not delivering any value.
Yeah,
it's just taking people's money, and they already know that it's a temporary fix, and they're going to gain all the way back plus.
Well, the bottom line is this. They're not trying to help the people become empowered and healed. They're trying to create customers. See, there's a difference. When you do this work, my job is I want to empower you so you don't need me anymore. You want to pay whatever you're going to pay for whatever work you do, which is great. But ultimately, the goal is to empower the person to go off on their own and be powerful and be able to do it. These programs and these industries are designed around making money only, and I won't say all of them because some of them are obviously there to help, but the people are not being moved to empowerment, and they're being moved into a dependency. That is what we don't want. We want them to be empowered. All the drugs are about dependency. They're not about healing. It's about getting you dependent on something so I can keep making money. If you get healed, their fear is, well, what if everybody gets healed? Then nobody needs these drugs anymore. That's the direction we want to go in. But again, there's a lot of fear because what these drug companies, for example, are saying, we need people on drugs. That's how we make money.
Well, the business is about sickness. So we gotta not only have sick people, but we even have to create sick people so that we going to be around as long as possible.
Well, listen, they have to create a disease to create a drug. What right? Think about it. When I remember
you said it. You said it. Yes.
Right. When I was younger, there was no such thing as ADD. It didn't exist. Right? They said if the kid was acting up, they said he was a rambunctious kid, he was a troublemaker, whatever, and they made him sit in the corner. Now we're going to come up with ADD, and we're going to create a drug so we could put all these kids on drugs and numb them, because now maybe one of those kids is creative and they have a hard time functioning in that environment. Doesn't mean they have ADD. But again, we created a disease, and then we went and created adult ADD. So we have another whole market, because now we got all the kids on these drugs. Now let's get the adults, and I remember seeing a commercial where they showed, they're so good at, we talked about marketing, right? They had a woman, I remember there was one years ago, they had a woman sitting in a conference room, and basically it said, well, when you're working, are you thinking about your kids? Are you thinking about home? Are you thinking about something else? You may have adult ADD. So who's not thinking of that stuff? Of course you're thinking of that. But right away, it's planting the seed that there's something wrong with you. You have a problem. You need a pill. We can help you. This is what we become. Instead of saying, well, if I deal with my emotional self, I don't need any of this stuff. That's empowerment. Very different. Very different way to go.
So Joe, believe it or not, I'm also teaching salespeople right now.
Wow.
It's kind of interesting that's how I ended up doing right now, and I'm doing it in one of the most difficult industries of all, in finance.
Wow, okay.
And I'm basically, what I tell them is, take the dollar signs off your forehead, because even if you don't think they're there, they are there, and everybody can see
them.
Oh,
yeah, sure.
And take it off and replace it with a sign that says, how can I provide value to you, and how can I serve you? And from that place, based on who you are being, the money will come. You don't even have to worry about the money.
Yes, if they are able to be in that space congruently. Now, if they may be afraid to say, well, if I do it that way, I won't make any money. If they're holding that belief, then that will translate into, see, a lot of people, because they want to be right, and it's easy for them to say, well, what you're telling me is to work this way, but my belief system tells me you're wrong, so therefore I need to go out and prove that I'm right. So I'm going to go out there in an energy that says, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to come back to tell Steve that he's wrong. It's very interesting what people will do. So they have to be congruent with, okay, I'm not looking at dollar signs, I'm here to help you, and I believe that that's going to be the best way for me to be successful. The question is not whether they use the words or the language, but which is part of it. But do they believe
what they believe? What they believe, yeah.
That's all that counts, because they could go out and say anything they want.
Exactly.
If they don't believe it, it makes no difference.
That's right. That's right. And we all know that good salespeople can talk out of both sides of their mouth, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So, matter of fact, some of them are so good, and we even have them in our industry in personal development, because there are lots of people that talk a great game, but when you get to know them, they're not walking the talk.
Listen, every industry has these people. It's what it is. Again, it's accepting what it is. So the bottom line is, a lot of people, again, they're focused on, a lot of people in this. When I got into this work, the first thing, you learning and you start talking to people who are doing it, all they talked about was money. And it was like, okay, here's what you have to do, and here's how you get them to buy it, and here's what you do, and you tell them the price, and then you tell them they can't leave the room until they buy it right now. I said, well, I don't want to do that. That doesn't feel good. That doesn't feel good for me to tell that to somebody. I may make them a special offer and say, I'm going to give you this offer today, but I don't want to make them feel like if they leave the room and they don't buy it right now, they're the biggest loser in the world, and that was what a lot of people wanted you to do. Again, you must be congruent with whatever it is you're doing. If those feelings are not lined up, nothing will work. But I will tell you this, people who are only focused on money, because energy is non-judgmental, they will attract people to give them that money, because that's all part of the cycle. And if they don't care about collateral damage and they don't care about these people, they will still bring, because people say to me, well, how do these people make money when all they're doing is, they're screwing people over, or they're not doing the right thing, or they're hurting people. I said, the universe does not judge it. It just goes off the energy. That's all that counts. That's why it happens.
Absolutely. So there are the executives at Coca-Cola
Yes.
that don't have a problem getting up in the morning and looking themselves in the mirror, that the products that they are putting out is actually killing people.
Yeah,
They don't have a problem with that.
No.
But all the people that are coming and buying it don't seem to care what they're putting in their mouth either. So it works perfectly. There's nothing wrong.
And it's funny. People say, "Oh, they shouldn't have this." I said, "Well, the consumer has the power, not the company." If the consumer doesn't buy, if the consumer stops buying the people talk about this with athletes, like they pay these guys all this money. I said, well, if nobody goes to the game, the games or watches the TV or whatever they do,
sports is over. Yeah,
all the money is gone. So don't blame the player. If you were in that industry and somebody would offer you $20 million to throw a football, you're going to say no? Of course not. Yeah. So again, it's all driven.
Absolutely. We want to transform commercial television. Stop watching it 4 to 6 hours a day.
Don't watch.
It will be transformed very quickly.
Very fast. All you have to do is watch television to see what people want. They want to watch all this reality and drama and people getting upset and fighting and all these things. If people didn't want to watch it, it's the same thing. It's like having a McDonald's or whatever. People drive everything. So you're going to complain. You're going to say you shouldn't have it. It's not about we should have it. People should have the choice. If people don't want it, then it won't exist. It's very simple. Stop blaming everybody else and everything else. People want to blame, the potato chip company and Frito-Lay and McDonald's. They're not the issue.
They're not putting a gun to anybody's head to eat the potato chips.
But this is us. This is the society attacking the effect. The effect is this is the effect, not the cause. The cause is.
So it comes back. It comes back to personal responsibility, right?
It comes back to what you learned as a kid. When I see people, we grew up. One of the things we would always do. My son is now 21, but when we were younger, when he was younger, we made sure we had dinner. If I was home, working or whatever. But generally, most nights we sat down and had dinner. My wife cooked, and that was it. If you fed your kid fast food every meal, and he got conditioned to eat that food, don't turn around now and say, "Well, look, you did it. You made that. You created that circumstance." And now people want to get mad. I remember seeing a story years ago where women all band together to had a whole boycott of these potato chips in the school, and they were going after the company, and they shouldn't make this product. I'm like, well, you put it in the kid's lunchbox. Stop putting it in the kid's lunchbox. So you have the power to make that decision. I think this is one of the things people don't understand. You have the power. You have the power of choice. You have the power to do whatever you want. It's the minute you step into that space, that's when your life will change. But I will tell you that people fear having that power because it gives them responsibility. And people don't like it. They rather be a victim. Very easy. Yeah. This is much harder to do.
Yeah, and so same thing is true for politics or government.
Absolutely.
We have the power, but instead of we taking the power, we just rather have a few thousand people decide for us.
Yeah, and nobody
and
even...
we'll just bitch about how bad it is.
Yeah, and people want to complain. I'm watching a show when Obama was running, and they had all these young people who were Republicans and saying, he's a socialist, and their interviewer goes up to the guy, young kid, he's probably in his 20s, and said, well, tell me what a socialist is. He said, I don't know. He said, well, you're telling me you're not voting for the guy because he's a socialist. You don't even know what it is. But this is how Hitler got started.
It's like I have a good example because I'm teaching people now how to make cold calls, and it's funny. I had to deal with this myself. I'm going like cold calling is something that I had on the list for myself never to do.
Talk about
and here I am. It's in my face, right? And now I'm paying attention to these things. It's in my face, and he goes, well, I can't teach this, Joe, unless I know myself.
Of course.
So guess what I had to do?
Start making some cold calls.
Exactly. So that I know and I can relate to what these people are dealing with.
Now, I want to tell you what I did, Steve, just to help you, because as you know, words are very important. I never use the word cold calls because it has a negative association and connotation. So when I go do a training, I tell people, okay, today we're going to make opportunity calls, because it changes the dynamic of energy.
Yeah,
because when I say
thank you. Yeah.
Now think about it. If you go in and say, okay, today,
Because yeah, I agree with you because it's a numbers game. You may
right,
have to make 100 calls, but
right,
what you're after is that one.
right, you only need one.
You only need one.
But again, those
And
associations are so powerful, and when you go in, especially salespeople, and you start saying, we're going to make cold calls today, right away the energy shifts
not really cold calls. Yes, yes.
because nobody wants to do
Very
it.
good,
Everybody's
very
like,
good.
yeah.
Joe, I missed it, but you bring up a very good point.
You're
Yes.
going to have to bring me out to Colorado. I'm going to come out there and do some training.
I'm gonna start using that right away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's just the way it goes. So here's what's interesting is that I'm talking that there's a whole product out there called reverse mortgages, and
Right.
I'm actually being hired to do a radio show right now about reverse mortgages. So that's the other reason why I'm doing these calls. I need to understand the market and
Yeah,
who
sure.
the potential buyers are, and I have to be connected to this in order to do a really good show.
Yeah, sure.
And what's interesting is the people that are so a reverse mortgage is really a product that should be part of everybody's retirement portfolio. But because people are so scared and they come from fear, so when somebody actually has paid off their mortgage, they feel like they have arrived somewhere.
Right.
Like, oh my God, they accomplished something. And I hate to say this, but when you pay off your mortgage, you haven't accomplished anything because what you have now is a wonderful asset, and that's like having money under your pillow that you can't get to.
Yeah. People, yeah. No, but
So
it's
a great
psychological
feeling.
thing. Yeah, it's a good feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. It's a great, and that's why I'm bringing it up because it's again going back to what you said from the beginning of the show. Everything is about feeling. It's a feeling, and where these people were growing up, they were, growing up in the 1920s, the
Yeah.
19,
Yeah.
whatever.
30s, 40s, 50s.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, and those were the times where even food was scarce, and we didn't have the abundance of McDonald's. And so that's where they come from. It's like, but wait a minute, but that's your savings account, and you should be thinking about. I mean, I'm going to be like next week. I'm going to be 61.
Wow.
And
Happy birthday.
yeah, thank you. And I don't feel 61. I feel like 41. And the thing is that I want to be able to use money. Money is just energy, right?
Sure.
I want to use money not just like I have these buckets, not just for me, for myself, but for my family and also people that I don't know. I want to give back. So I want to do whatever it is that I can do to make a difference for myself, for my family, and for others that I can help. So, and I even want to do that, and I have always wanted to do it, and I've done it when I didn't even have it. Do you get this? There were times when I didn't have money to give, but I still gave somehow. I don't know how, but I just did it. So it's like this is so interesting. And then how do you have a conversation with somebody who's completely resigned and cynical about this, and like I have people that I call and they pick up the phone and they go, "Who are you and what do you want?" and I'm going like, "Sir, have a wonderful day. Have a great rest of the day. Goodbye."
Yeah. It depends. Again, everybody's different.
Yeah, because it's like for somebody like that who's already angry.
Yeah.
And he's picked up the phone and he already knows, like how we know that who we have on the other line is a salesman, and I don't want to buy anything. Don't sell me anything. I want to protect myself from you. If that's where you come from, unfortunately, I'm not going to get anywhere with that person. Nor do I want to.
Well, basically, what I do,
Next.
yeah. Well, when I'm doing this work, even the healing work or any kind of work, I put people in 3 buckets basically. I have the first bucket is there are people who are just they're never gonna change. They're gonna do what they want. They're closed off. The other bucket is people who are open, who are looking to change and make positive changes. And then we get the people who are kind of in the middle. And I always look at it and say, okay, I'm going to forget that 1/3 because there's nothing I can do with them. The other third is already open, so that's pretty good. It's what I do with the middle third that's going to be critical. The middle third is going to be the people who are in a sales situation who could go either way. Because
The ones on the fence. Those are the fence
they're
sitters.
kind of in between. They're saying, well, I'm somewhat interested. I think it's interesting, but I'm not really sure. Those are the keys that's the difference between somebody who does pretty well and somebody who does great. Is the person who does great has the ability to take the person in between and really show them what they can do to help them. That's the difference.
Yep.
So that's because the other people, the people who are open, they're easy because they're open to it. They want to do something and they're going to talk.
They will listen. They will listen.
And they will at least listen to you. So the other third,
you can ask them questions and they'll engage. I mean, I already know the experiences. I already know where it's going to go.
Oh, sure. And the other third, like I said, the ones who are not. The ones who are shut down, forget it.
Absolutely.
So the middle ones, but when you're dealing with something like money, the feeling for a lot of people, which is critically important, is the trust factor. That feeling of trust is so important if you're dealing with somebody's money. You're talking about somebody's house, which is their biggest investment. It is the most important thing that they have. They've worked all these years to get to a certain point, and there has to be a feeling of trust, which is usually built over time and potentially meeting in person or whatever you have to do. That's why when I work with people who do that kind of business, I will suggest that they do live events. They will do different things to get people to meet them, to create that warmer feeling where, hey, listen, come to the thing. We're not pressuring you. It takes a little time because it's a big decision for somebody to make and to trust you.
Yeah, and that's really the plan. I mean, we're gonna do these radio shows and invite people to like a seminar.
Yeah, and because again, at least they meet you, they can talk to you, they can they know you're real.
Feel you and how does it feel and how does it look, and people have to be able to touch you, and that's so cool. So guess what? The Conscious Hour is almost over.
Wow.
I told you that this will happen. It feels like to me we just started this conversation and it's been going on for 59 minutes. So before we wrap up, I want to quickly get to the Karma Buster, but before we do that, I want to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about what you would like to promote right now, your website. How do you want the viewers to contact you?
Well, the best thing if they go to my main site is joenunz.com. It's joenunz.com. And if they go on there, they'll see that they can just kind of check out a bunch of stuff. There's some free things they can get as well. So they can go to joenunz.com. You'll see upcoming events, free webinars, my membership program, the books, all the products, and really get some information on what I do. I also send out a weekly word every week on Mondays. They can subscribe to that for free. And again, all that stuff is at joenunz.com.
Fantastic. So quickly, let's just do a quick review of Karma Buster. What is that book about?
Well,
I know what karma is.
Right. I wrote the book because a lot of people don't understand. They don't understand karma. They think it's just all cause and effect, and it's a lot more than that. So I really wrote the book to give people an understanding of how their karma really works, and also understand how they get trapped in negative cycles of karma, which are basically how we would see patterns, and to give people some tools and some things that they can do to clear the negative karma. So really to understand karma at a deeper level, not just, well, if I do something good happens. If I do something bad happens. That's a very rudimentary version of it. It is a lot more to it. And when people understand their karma, which is part of our journey, they can understand how to move through things more gracefully and also break and get themselves off the karmic wheel, which is the negativity, and move forward and really get on track with their mission and purpose.
Oh wow, Joe, that really hits home with me. Like over 10 years ago, I used to see the glass half empty first, and in 10 years, I completely switched. Now the glass is always half full.
Good.
So it is possible. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah, me too. I say if I can do
New York,
from my background, anybody can do it.
If you can do it from Brooklyn, anybody.
If you can do it from Brooklyn, you can do it.
Well, Joe, you've been absolutely fantastic. I really thoroughly enjoyed being with you for this really quick Conscious Hour, because really that's what it is. And I was completely connected with you, and we're also teaching everybody on this network how to be in the present moment. And the way I accomplish that is I just don't have any noise in my head. I learned how to quiet the noise in my head. I don't have chatters going on. So I can be over there with you and I think we demonstrated that pretty well, and so did you. And because that's the only way possible to do a conscious hour in 5 minutes. Yeah. So you were absolutely fantastic. I loved it, and I hope the show will get watched a lot on our YouTube channel. We have over 1,500 shows uploaded, and the more people watch it every 30 days, the more it gets up to the top 10. If this show gets to the top 10, it will go to PBS.
That's fantastic. Well, I appreciate what you're doing, and I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening and a wonderful weekend.
You too.
Thanks, Joe.